Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Peter Morton, and I'm Regional Vice President for Gray on the East Coast. And today we'll be talking about autonomous vehicles. We've been hearing about flying cars since the Jetsons, and it seems to be the case that we might actually see them in the not too distant future. So unmanned vehicles come in a variety of different forms. They can travel in the sky, over the road, and in the water. Some of you may have seen a rather interesting news story that came out this week. Uber announced that it has a partnership with Hyundai to launch an aerial taxi service, VTOL, which stands for vertical takeoff and landing. The plan is to have this service rolled out in Los Angeles, Dallas, and Melbourne, Australia by 2023. So this really is upon us. It's pretty exciting. I personally live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and there's a partnership between Carnegie Mellon University and Uber here in Pittsburgh, where we actually have self-driving cars. They're kind of hard to miss when you see them because they have a giant rack of sensors on the roof. So they haven't necessarily nailed down the aesthetics just yet, but the technology is here and it's evolving all the time. In the maritime industry, you have drones that are essentially mini submarines that can do all sorts of things like conduct hydrographic surveys or check out structural integrity of boat hulls or oil rigs, things of that nature, jobs that previously were done by divers. In fact, a friend of mine who I went to high school with launched a small business in New England doing exactly that with underwater drones. And from a small entrepreneurial venture in New England, they've actually expanded all over the United States and now do work internationally. So there's certainly a lot of opportunity for the entrepreneurial-minded individuals who are interested in unmanned vehicles. We've been spending a lot of money in the U.S. military and actually been using drones for quite some time, but the spending is significant, $8.3 billion in military spending. And the FAA recently rolled out some new regulation around aerial drones where they have to be registered. The user has to be registered. And there are actually 1.5 million registered drone users in the US now. And I'm sure that number is growing all the time. So certainly the autonomous vehicles are going to impact the way that we work, the way we travel, the way we receive goods and services. And the industry itself is really quite significant already. $54 billion in 2019, but the possibility for growth to over $500 billion in 2026 really cannot be ignored. It's really quite significant. And there will also be other applications in addition to transportation in the areas of like security, surveillance, and scientific discovery. So there's a lot of opportunity in this space. That's not to say that there aren't some challenges with the introduction of these vehicles and them becoming more commonplace in our daily lives. The challenges fall into a handful of different categories. The first, I think, three to think about would be the technology, the affordability, and the safety, which to some extent, I think all three of those problems will kind of resolve themselves. The tech is continually evolving and getting better all the time. And as with most technologies, as it gets more efficient, it becomes more affordable. And certainly the safety concerns will improve as well. Additionally, though, there are a lot of things to think about with regard to how we introduce these unmanned vehicles into our daily lives. Particularly, the regulatory challenges are significant. If you consider moving freight in the United States, whether it's aerially or over the road, even just moving from one state to the other, and there are 50 states in the US, so you've got 50 unique sets of rules and regulations. So there certainly will be some red tape that needs to be navigated moving forward. In addition to that, there will be some infrastructural concerns. If you consider the possibility of delivery via aerial drone, the possibility of literally thousands, if not tens of thousands of drones buzzing about above our heads, certainly introduces some infrastructural concerns. And safety concerns as well. And also the actual highway system probably needs to be looked at from the perspective of how do we ensure safety with regard to autonomous vehicles on the road with human-controlled vehicles on the road. So there are definitely some things to think about. Additionally, cybersecurity is going to be an ongoing concern. Any system that is regulated by a computer has the potential to be hacked. So cybersecurity is going to be paramount moving forward as these autonomous vehicles become more ubiquitous. And then additionally, I think one of the biggest challenges that we're going to see is just the adoption challenge and the fear associated with unmanned vehicles. not a lot of people that would be necessarily willing to hop into a driverless car right now. And within a few years, that car very well may not even have a steering wheel. There was a really kind of a sad story that came out a couple of years ago of a woman who was struck by a driverless Uber in Arizona. Unfortunately, the press kind of picked that story up and ran with it, and there was a lot of fear and hysteria around the technology not being where it needs to be. The part that they missed in the story was that the woman had a history of drug abuse and was intoxicated and trying to cross a 4-lane highway with traffic about 40 or 50 miles an hour. So certainly a tragic story, but not necessarily a condemnation of the technology itself. As the old phrase goes, out with the old and in with the new. There are going to be a lot of jobs that will be replaced by autonomous and unmanned vehicles. Amazon has made an announcement that they want to do delivery by aerial drone. Certainly the same could be said of delivery trucks. And I think one of the industries that will be most heavily impacted by unmanned vehicles will be over-the-road trucking. The American Trucking Association estimates there are about 3.5 million over-the-road truck drivers in the United States. If we are able to successfully introduce unmanned trucks into the fleet, a lot of these jobs are going to be replaced. And it's not just the truck drivers themselves, but consider also that the businesses that support the trucking industry. So think roadside motels, roadside restaurants, truck stops, all of which are staffed by service workers who may not be in high demand moving forward. The gas stations could potentially be impacted as well. Tesla just last year launched an electric tractor trailer, and if they're successful in rolling those out to the fleet, certainly the needs will change. So certainly there'll be electric fueling stations will be necessary, but traditional fueling stations will be less and less necessary. That is not to say that the machines are taking over and that everyone's going to be out of a job. The fact is that with these high-tech systems, there's going to be a significant need for a set of highly trained and highly skilled individuals to support these industries. So think engineers, software developers, as mentioned before, cybersecurity experts, repair and maintenance, and then certainly folks involved in the legal and regulatory and policy development space to regulate these new industries as they're introduced into our daily lives. So what are colleges doing to respond to these new opportunities? We've seen 20+ programs announced in the last couple of years. Several certificate and associate programs around drone piloting and operations. We've seen some bachelor's programs that focus on the overall UAV technology, including software, hardware, engineering, and cybersecurity. And of course, as mentioned, regulatory concerns are going to be a big part of, and policy issues are going to be a big part of the discussion moving forward. Additionally, supply chain and logistics management and sales and marketing. As Bob mentioned earlier, the MOOCs are kind of leading the charge a little bit. We have seen some courses at edX, Coursera, and Udacity offering credentials in self-driving car tech. So let's look at some traditional institutions that are offering programs in the space now. University of Southern Mississippi has an Unmanned Maritime Systems Certificate. It's a 3-month certificate program launched in 2017 with an initial cohort of 15 civilian and military personnel. So not a bad start for a launch of a new program. Additionally, at Atlantic Cape Community College, they have offered an Associate in Applied Science in Small and Unmanned Aircraft System Technician. So you see some of the courses listed there. So things like maintaining and repairing unmanned aerial vehicles, aerial video production, which is actually become rather ubiquitous in a lot of different industries, conducting agricultural surveys as well. If you've purchased a home in the last several years, you may have noticed an aerial photograph of the home when it's posted online. You see that a lot for the real estate industry, and it's even made its way into the wedding industry, where wedding photographers are using unmanned or aerial drones to take photographs above receptions. And lastly, this is a Bachelor's in Science in Unmanned Aerial Systems offered by Purdue University. So this is a program that's focusing on the entire system surrounding the unmanned aerial industry, including design, operations, sensors, commerce, and policy. And what's kind of exciting here is that projections for 70,000 new jobs related to this industry in the next 3 years. So certainly there are opportunities for individuals either looking to earn a degree and enter the career field or potentially retrain and enter a new career field. Thank you.